Most people believe that exposing a narcissist requires confrontation, evidence, or the perfect set of words spoken at the perfect moment. They believe that if they could just explain clearly enough, the truth would finally be seen. But narcissistic dynamics do not collapse under explanation, they collapse under absence. The most powerful unmasking does not happen through arguments or accusations. It happens quietly when you stop reacting, stop performing, and stop giving your emotional energy to someone who feeds on it. This is the story of how silence, boundaries, and self respect reveal what manipulation works so hard to hide. Narcissists rely on reactions the way others rely on connection. For them, emotional responses are not simply feedback, they are proof of control, relevance, and power. Every visible reaction you give, whether it is anger, tears, confusion, or even excessive explanation, confirms to them that they can still reach inside you and pull a string. This is why they provoke, gaslight, dismiss, and invalidate. The goal is not resolution, the goal is reaction. When you react, they feel significant. When you react, they feel dominant. When you react, they feel reassured that they still matter in your emotional world. What makes this dynamic so damaging is that most empathetic people are conditioned to respond. They believe silence is rude, distance is cruel, and disengagement is avoidance. A narcissist exploits this conditioning. They push until you explain yourself, defend your intentions, or try to restore fairness. But fairness is never the point. The moment you begin to justify yourself, the conversation shifts away from truth and into performance. The narcissist is no longer listening. They are watching your emotional temperature rise and adjusting their tactics accordingly. Reactions give narcissists information. Your tone tells them where you are insecure. Your anger shows them where you are hurt. Your sadness reveals what you value. They store these reactions not to understand you, but to use you. What feels like emotional honesty to you becomes strategy to them. This is why conversations with narcissists often feel exhausting and circular. You leave feeling drained because your emotional energy has been extracted without any intention of mutual understanding. When reactions stop, the dynamic changes completely. Calm responses, brief answers, or emotional neutrality feel threatening to a narcissist because they remove leverage. Without visible emotion, they cannot gauge impact. Without intensity, they cannot escalate effectively. This does not mean suppressing feelings. It means refusing to perform them for someone who will misuse them. Internally, you may still feel deeply, but externally, you choose regulation over reaction. This is often when the narcissist becomes more provocative. They may accuse you of being cold, distant, or changed. These accusations are confessions of loss of control. They are reacting to the absence of the emotional supply they once depended on. What exposes them is not what you say in response, but the fact that you no longer give them what they are demanding. By understanding that narcissists rely on reactions rather than connection, you reclaim your power. You stop feeding the cycle without needing to confront, explain, or convince. The unmasking happens quietly through restraint, awareness, and the decision to no longer be emotionally accessible to manipulation. Silence disrupts a narcissist's sense of control because control is built on constant engagement. A narcissist needs interaction to regulate their fragile sense of self. They need to feel influential, impactful, and central in your emotional world. Silence interrupts that flow. It removes the feedback loop they depend on to measure their importance. When you stop responding in the ways they expect, their internal balance is shaken, not because they suddenly gain insight, but because their control mechanisms no longer work. This silence is often misunderstood. It is not punishment, manipulation, or a tactic designed to make someone suffer. It is the quiet refusal to participate in emotional chaos. Narcissists are skilled at pulling people into endless conversations that go nowhere, filled with blame, shifting, denial, and circular logic. Every response you give becomes another thread they can pull. Silence cuts those threads. Without dialogue to twist, they are left with their own discomfort. What makes silence so destabilizing is that it removes the narcissist's ability to rewrite reality in real time. When you engage, they can interrupt, deflect, and distort your words until you doubt yourself. Silence prevents that. There is nothing to reframe, nothing to argue against, nothing to dominate. This absence forces them to confront the loss of influence, which often triggers visible frustration or escalation. In response, a narcissist may attempt to provoke a reaction. They may send inflammatory messages, bring up old wounds, or suddenly act charming and remorseful. These shifts are not signs of growth, they are strategies to restore engagement. Silence exposes these patterns because the contrast becomes obvious. When kindness appears only after distance, its manipulative nature is revealed without you having to point it out. Silence also protects your nervous system. Constant engagement with a narcissist keeps your body in a state of hypervigilance. You are always preparing for the next emotional hit, the next invalidation, the next twist of reality. Choosing silence allows your system to settle. As you calm, clarity returns. You begin to see the patterns that were once obscured by emotional overload. This clarity is threatening to someone who depends on your confusion. The narcissist often interprets silence as abandonment, disrespect, or betrayal. These accusations are not about your behavior, they are about their loss of control. When they can no longer access you on demand, their entitlement is exposed. Others may notice the imbalance as well. The person who once claimed to be misunderstood now appears reactive and destabilized in the absence of conflict. Silence does not need to be explained to be effective. Its power lies in consistency, not drama. You are not withholding to win. You are disengaging to heal. And in doing so, you quietly dismantle the illusion of power the narcissist relied on, allowing their behavior to speak for itself. Boundaries speak louder than confrontation because confrontation invites debate, and debate is where narcissistic dynamics thrive. When you confront a narcissist, you are often hoping for accountability, insight, or acknowledgement. But narcissistic personalities do not experience confrontation as an opportunity for reflection. They experience it as a challenge to their authority. The moment you confront, the focus shifts away from the behavior and toward winning, dominating, or discrediting you. Boundaries, on the other hand, do not ask for permission. They are not arguments and they are not explanations. A boundary is a decision you make about what you will and will not tolerate, followed by consistent action. You do not need the narcissist to agree with your boundary for it to be valid. This is precisely why boundaries are so effective and so threatening to them. They remove negotiation from the equation. Narcissists are accustomed to pushing limits and watching people bend. They test, provoke, and guilt others into compliance. When someone confronts them verbally, they can deflect, deny, or reverse blame. But when someone quietly changes access, availability, or emotional openness, the narcissist feels exposed. the usual tactics no longer work. There is nothing to argue against when your behavior has already changed. Healthy boundaries also reveal entitlement. A narcissist often believes they deserve unlimited access to your time, attention, and emotional energy. When you stop answering immediately, stop over explaining, or stop accommodating disrespect, their reaction becomes the evidence. Anger, mockery, or accusations of cruelty often follow. These responses are not caused by the boundary itself, but by the narcissist's inability to tolerate limits. Without you saying a word, their behavior highlights the problem. Boundaries require internal strength because they often trigger backlash. A narcissist may escalate, attempt to punish, or portray themselves as the victim. This is where many people doubt themselves and retreat. But consistency is what gives boundaries their power. Each time you hold the line calmly, you reinforce a new reality in which manipulation no longer yields rewards. What makes boundaries so transformative is that they shift your focus inward. Instead of monitoring the narcissist's mood, reactions, or approval, you begin to prioritize your own well being. This internal shift weakens the emotional grip the narcissist once had. You are no longer trying to be understood, you are choosing to be safe. Over time, boundaries dismantle the false image the narcissist has crafted. Others may notice that you are calm while they are reactive, stable while they are volatile. You did not expose them with accusations. You allowed their response to limits to reveal who they are. And that quiet clarity is far more powerful than any confrontation could ever be. Emotional detachment exposes manipulation because manipulation depends on emotional investment. A narcissist's tactics only work when you are emotionally hooked, when their approval matters, when their mood can shift your inner state. Detachment is not indifference and it is not cruelty. It is the deliberate choice to step out of emotional enmeshment so that their behavior no longer dictates your reactions. Once that attachment loosens, manipulation becomes visible instead of confusing. When you are emotionally involved, you tend to personalize everything. You question yourself, analyze their words, and search for hidden meanings. A narcissist relies on this internal chaos. Gaslighting works because you are invested in being fair, being understood, and maintaining harmony. Emotional detachment creates distance between their actions and your sense of self. You begin to observe rather than absorb. What once felt overwhelming now looks patterned. This shift is deeply unsettling to a narcissist. They are accustomed to provoking strong emotions because emotions give them leverage. Anger allows them to label you unstable. Sadness allows them to dismiss you as weak. Anxiety keeps you seeking reassurance. Detachment removes all of these entry points. Your responses become measured, your tone steady, your energy contained. The narcissist may accuse you of not caring or being different, but what they are reacting to is the loss of access. Detachment also reveals intent. When you stop reacting emotionally, the narcissist's behavior often escalates or becomes more obvious. The charm appears abruptly, the cruelty becomes sharper, or the victim narrative intensifies. These shifts are not random. They are attempts to regain emotional control. Because you are no longer entangled, you can see these moves for what they are, rather than explanations you need to fix. Many people fear emotional detachment because they equate it with becoming cold or unloving. In reality, it is an act of self-respect. You are not shutting down your emotions. You are choosing where they belong. You stop offering emotional intimacy to someone who consistently weaponizes it. This redirection of energy restores clarity and stability within you. As detachment deepens, the power dynamic reverses. You are no longer trying to prove your worth or correct their perception of you. Their opinions lose authority. Their provocations lose urgency. Without emotional payoff, manipulation becomes ineffective and transparent. The narcissist may feel exposed because their tactics no longer land, and that exposure happens without accusation or confrontation. Emotional detachment does not announce itself. It shows up in your calm, your restraint, and your refusal to be pulled into emotional turbulence. In that quiet space, manipulation stands out clearly, stripped of drama, excuses, and confusion, revealing the pattern that was always there waiting to be seen. Consistency reveals the truth a narcissist tries to hide because narcissistic dynamics depend on instability. The narcissist shifts roles constantly, charming one moment, dismissive the next, kind when it serves them, cruel when it does not. This unpredictability keeps others off balance and focused on managing the relationship rather than evaluating it. When you respond inconsistently, the chaos feels mutual. But when you become consistent, the imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. Consistency means your behavior no longer changes in response to their moods, threats, or temporary kindness. You do not soften your boundaries because they apologize, and you do not escalate your reactions because they provoke. This steadiness removes the emotional fog that narcissists rely on. Without the constant rise and fall of engagement, patterns emerge clearly. Their cycles repeat while you remain grounded. For a narcissist, this is deeply uncomfortable. They rely on emotional spikes to reset the narrative. After harm, they may offer affection to erase accountability. After distance, they may create crisis to regain attention. Consistency disrupts this reset. When your response stays the same regardless of their tactic, the manipulation loses effectiveness. They can no longer train you to respond on cue. This is often when the narcissist reveals more of themselves. They may accuse you of being rigid, unforgiving, or changed. These accusations are attempts to pressure you back into emotional flexibility that benefits them. But your consistency highlights the contrast between your stability and their volatility. You are no longer reacting, you are responding with intention. Consistency also protects your self trust. In narcissistic relationships, people often doubt their perceptions because the environment keeps shifting. One day you feel valued, the next you feel erased. By being consistent in your own actions, you create an internal anchor. You stop questioning whether you imagined the harm or overreacted. Your behavior becomes aligned with your values rather than their approval. Over time, others may begin to notice the dynamic more clearly. When you remain calm, respectful, and predictable, and the narcissist continues to fluctuate, the illusion they've crafted weakens. You did not expose them publicly. You did not argue your case. You allowed reality to unfold through repetition. Consistency is not passive. It requires discipline and emotional strength. It means tolerating discomfort without reverting to old patterns. But it is also deeply liberating. You are no longer chasing resolution through engagement. You are allowing truth to surface through time and behavior. In the presence of consistency, masks cannot be maintained. The narcissist's attempts to control perception begin to fail because the environment no longer supports the illusion. What remains is behavior, repeated and observable, quietly revealing what words were designed to conceal. Healing yourself becomes the ultimate unmasking because narcissistic dynamics survive on your wounds. A narcissist often attaches to unhealed parts of you: your empathy, your self doubt, your desire to be chosen, your hope that love can fix what is broken. As long as those wounds are active, manipulation has a place to land. Healing does not expose the narcissist by attacking them. It exposes them by removing the role they were playing in your inner world. When you begin to heal, your tolerance for dysfunction changes. What once felt confusing now feels unacceptable. What once felt normal now feels heavy. This shift is not loud or dramatic, but it is profound. You stop explaining your pain to someone who benefits from it. You stop chasing closure from someone invested in chaos. The narcissist may feel something slipping away, but they cannot name it because it is not about behavior, it is about access. Healing restores your internal compass. In narcissistic relationships, that compass is often disrupted. You are taught subtly and repeatedly to doubt your instincts and prioritize their version of reality. As you heal, your self-trust returns. You no longer need constant validation or reassurance. This independence is deeply threatening to someone who relies on your dependence to feel powerful. As your healing deepens, the narcissist's tactics become increasingly ineffective. Guilt no longer hooks you, fear no longer freezes you, love bombing no longer confuses you. Without emotional payoff, their behavior becomes more extreme or more obvious. This is not because you provoke them, but because the dynamic they relied on no longer exists.